At the very end of 1979, the Soviet Union launched this massive invasion of its southern neighbor, Afghanistan. Now, Moscow's official line was that this was just a quick mission to save a friendly government. They thought they'd be in and out in 6 months, tops. Instead, it turned into a brutal, decade-long war. So let's get into the story of how it all went so wrong. Just picture it for a second. It's Christmas, 1979, and the silence of the rugged Afghan mountains is just shattered by the roar of Soviet tanks pouring over the border. High above, swarms of helicopters are securing the vital mountain passes. The Red Army is making its move, and really, the world had no idea what was about to be unleashed. But here's the thing that's so fascinating. The top Soviet military brass, they were actually really skeptical about the whole thing. They had major doubts that they could ever truly control a place like Afghanistan. Which brings us to the big question we're tackling here. If they knew the risks were so high, why on earth did the Soviet Union invade? To figure that out, we've got to rewind the clock. We need to go back before the invasion to see what was happening in Afghanistan in the 1970s. Because let me tell you, it was an absolute powder keg, just waiting for a spark. You basically had two powerful forces on a collision course. On one side, you had the communists, the People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan, or PDPA. They had deep ties to the KGB, and they were looking at the Soviet Union thinking, we want that kind of radical change here. But on the other side, you had this rising movement of political Islam, with groups preaching a much more conservative vision for the country. And the universities in Kabul, they were the battleground, where these two ideas were clashing head-on. So in 1973, this guy, Mohammad Daoud Khan, takes power. At first, he's friendly with the communists, but that friendship goes south fast. By 75, he's actively purging them from the government while also crushing an Islamist rebellion. And then, in 1977, he does something really gutsy. He meets with Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev and pretty much tells him to his face that Afghanistan is not going to be anyone's puppet state. The lines were drawn. And that confrontation boiled over in April of 1978. It was an event that lit a fire that would engulf the entire nation. It was called the Tsar Revolution. After Daoud had some of the communist leaders arrested, army officers loyal to the party just snapped. They'd had enough. Tanks rolled through Kabul, jets screamed overhead, and in an incredibly bloody coup, Daoud and more than 1,000 of his supporters were killed. Just like that, the communists were in charge, and it took everyone from Moscow to Washington completely by surprise. For everyday people in Afghanistan, though, this wasn't a moment of victory. It was a moment of absolute dread. There's the story of a teenager who ran home from school, all excited to tell his dad about the revolution. His father just looked at him and said, "God bless us, the future is not good." And wow, did he nail it. He was so right. The new communist regime, they unleashed this radical program. On paper, you had things like land reform and equal rights for women, but the way they did it was with just unimaginable brutality. It wasn't reform, it was a reign of terror. We're talking mass executions, torture, and a full-blown war on the country's most respected religious and tribal leaders. Meanwhile, back in Moscow, the Kremlin is watching all this, and they are getting seriously alarmed. This revolution they thought they could manage, it was spinning completely out of their control. Yeah, the regime's tactics didn't build a new Afghanistan. They sparked a nationwide rebellion. It got so bad that in the city of Herat, an entire division of the Afghan army mutinied. The government's response was a horrifying massacre, killing anywhere from 3,000 to as many as 25,000 people. The whole country was on fire. The leader of the new government, a guy named Taraki, was in full-on panic mode. He gets on the phone with Moscow and basically admits, almost nobody supports us. If Herat falls, the revolution is doomed. He was begging for Soviet troops to come in and save him. But the old guys in the Politburo were just stunned by the mess their allies had made. The Soviets looked at this disaster and pinned the blame on one man, the ruthless number 2, Hafizullah Amin. So they hatched this secret plot with Taraki to get rid of him. But Amin was a step ahead. He survives their assassination attempt, turns the tables, and has his own boss, Taraki, suffocated with a pillow. Just like that, he was in total control. And this is the moment everything changes. Once Amin has all the power, he does the one thing the Soviets feared most. He starts reaching out to the United States and the UK. For the deeply paranoid Soviet leaders, this was the absolute last straw. They became convinced that they were about to lose Afghanistan to the CIA and the West. And that paranoia, that fear, it pushed them past the point of no return. They gave the green light to a top-secret, incredibly high-stakes mission to take Amin out, once and for all. The mission's name? Operation Storm 333. So on December 12th, the decision was made, totally in secret. The plan? Eliminate Amin, put a more controllable leader in his place, and send in the army to stabilize everything. And they did this even though their own top general warned them that it would be a political catastrophe that would turn the entire Muslim world against them. The plan itself was incredibly intricate. First, they moved elite KGB units and a special Muslim battalion of their own Central Asian soldiers into Kabul dressed in Afghan uniforms. Then, they launched sabotage attacks, cutting communications and knocking out the Afghan army's tanks. Step 3 was the big one. A small, elite force storms Amin's palace. And finally, the main invasion force of over 50,000 soldiers would roll across the border to prop up the new guy. On December 27th, it went down. It was just pure, brutal chaos. And the crazy part is, Amin still thought the Soviets were there to help him right up until the end. One of the Russian colonels who was there said the fighting inside the palace was fierce and uncompromising. They were breaking down doors and just throwing grenades into any room that didn't surrender immediately. And get this, the entire assault to storm a heavily guarded palace, topple a government, and kill its leader, it took all of 43 minutes. Just think about that. Less than an hour. Amin was killed in the fighting, along with his 2 young sons. The Soviets immediately put their puppet, Babrak Karmal, in charge. If you're looking at it from a purely military standpoint, the operation was a flawless, stunning success. The coup was done. The invasion force was rolling in. Mission accomplished, right? Well, not quite. The backlash from the rest of the world was immediate and absolutely furious. U.S. President Jimmy Carter put out this stark warning, making it crystal clear that this decision was going to cost the Soviet Union dearly. The Cold War just found its newest and hottest battleground. And that leaves us with the big, haunting question at the end of all this. How would an operation that was born out of pure paranoia, an operation that was supposed to be a quick 6-month fix, spiral into a decade-long bloodbath that would not only destroy Afghanistan, but also help lead a superpower dry and